So you're all set for Ren'Py, but if you wanted to get it at home, this is where you'd get it, ren'py.org. If you search for Ren'Py online, just on Google, there's only one thing that refers to. So there's I'm not sure what the Ren is, but the Pi is a reference to Python. So you can use Python, but I'll get into that in a bit. And then, okay, so no one has any questions about installing this. This is a free program. It's really awesome. I'm a big fan of it. Okay, so here we are in the lesson, proper making visual novels with Ren'Py. This is actually a second time we're doing in this class. The first time was actually it was a couple of years ago. And that's when I learned about Ren'Py and what Ren'Py was. So you're starting a fun journey coming to this class today. I watched the original class, which is also posted on our website. It was taught by Jamie Stevenson, and I realized when I was watching it, wow, I've always wanted to write, but I've never been able to sort of settle on an idea. Now I can make branching narratives, so I'm like, cool, this works. All right, so who am I? I'm a visual novel creator. I'm effigy 13 on itch.io. That's a website where you can post your games for other people to play. I'm the education admin at TVGS. I've been working in education here for almost 2 years now. I'm a mentor for the beginner game design and digital storytelling orbit groups, but I also help out with the other orbit groups to an extent. So, Ren'Py Overview. It's a free cross-platform visual novel engine. You can use it on Mac or Windows. And you can, I think also you can use it on Chrome OS as well. I haven't used it, but yeah, it's on the website that you can do that. The game logic and content is expressed in the custom Ren'Py language with text files, so .rpy files. And that's the ones that you'll be editing when you're actually creating a game or creating the visual novel. It provides it has a syntax, it has the most common visual novel actions. So, as I understand it, you're not necessarily, everyone's familiar with what a visual novel is. We'll go through an example, which you've actually seen before. So we'll be looking at the question. It's essentially, visual novels are a genre of game that are like a choose-your-own-adventure kind of story. So now you can also make what are called kinetic novels, which are just basically a story which you click through and has a lot of the same.
That's what I assumed that this was about. But
oh, okay. You're familiar with kinetic novels then?
No. I
Okay.
just assumed it was linear though.
Okay, so, well, kinetic novels are sort of the linear version of visual novels. So if you just wanted to tell a story straight through, no, choices, that's what called a kinetic novel. I'm not sure why or where where the terminology comes from. I mean, they both move, so the same amount essentially, or you can make them both move about the same amount. But that's what it's called. So just they display text. They have images, sounds, and animations, and you can also put in a bunch of other things like mini games, and you can actually create a click adventure. I've never done a click adventure. I'd like to at some point, but I've just it lends itself more easily to visual novels, so I tend to do that. Also, I'm a very busy person here at TVGS, and I'm about to get much busier. So it's I'm not sure when I'm going to get to that. All right, so custom Ren'Py language is built on top of Python and Pygame. So this is actually, I've not actually used Pygame. Pygame is one of my to-do list items. But that's an engine for making games with Python. Python code can be used in Ren'Py scripts, but sometimes Ren'Py has a very specific way of doing things and doesn't really like you using regular Python. Ren'Py doesn't like like regular Python. For example, I was trying to do stuff with random, kind of add a randomness element to one of my games, and I was pulling my hair out until I realized Python had one way of doing it, Ren'Py had another way of doing it. And some normal Python functions can clash with the built-in Ren'Py game engine functionality. So in visual novels, because you can make choices, sometimes people like to go back to a previous point in the story and try going down a different branch without having to restart the story. And that's called rollback. Usually it's the scroll wheel on your mouse, just scrolling back on that. And sometimes the Python functions get really hinky and break the game if you have a lot of them. So you have to kind of balance that and kind of plan for it. But you don't need to use Python, but it does give you more control over what you're creating. All right, so this is a part where I was like, let's take a look at the question. All right, so this is the Ren'Py launcher. And when you download it, you'll have your projects listed up here. And these two projects here, they're not really projects. This is an example project and the tutorial. And when you download Ren'Py, these just come with the game. So when you are working on it, when it's not built, you can launch the project. All right, so here we have the question, Ren'Py 7 edition. They had an early edition. So let's see. Okay, and you can't hear the music, but it also has music. All right, so the story goes, it's only when I hear the sounds of shuffling feet and supplies being put away that I realize that the lecture is over. Professor Eileen's lectures are usually interesting, but today I just couldn't concentrate on it. And you just click through, so that's what I'm doing. It's advancing it. You also have a chance of going to back, history, skip, saving it. Ren'Py has like a lot of the functionality you need to set up a game like built into it already, so into a project when you start a new project. So you don't have to worry about it, and preferences. All right, it's a question that I've been meaning to ask to a certain someone. We come out of the university, I spot her right away. I've known Sylvie since we were kids. She's got a big heart and she's always been a good friend to me. But recently I felt that I wanted something more. More than just talking, more than just walking home together when our classes end. As soon as she catches my eye, I decide to ask her right away, to ask her later. So, which one do we want to do? It does seem the right choice, but I'm going to do the wrong choice just for to be contrary, just to take things up a little bit. All right, I can't get up the nerve to ask right now. With a gulp, I decide to ask her later. But I am an indecisive person. I couldn't ask her that day, and I end up never being able to ask her. I guess I'll never know the answer to my question now. Bad ending. So the thing about visual novels is they'll usually have like different endings. So you'll have different options. So sometimes you'll get the good ending, sometimes you'll have multiple good endings and multiple bad endings. Or one good ending, lots of bad endings. It depends on what kind of story it is. So I click and I'm back here. So what we're gonna do is just, skip. Oh, okay. So that just took us right back to our decision. So you saw what I did there? Okay, now we're gonna ask her right away. Be decisive. Frequently also, when games have multiple endings, you number them too. So that's one way of like indicating to the. So if you have a lot of endings, if you have two, you don't really have to get into that. But if you're going to be really tricky, and then people like to kind of collect them, make sure they've hit every single one. Okay. Sylvie, hi there. How was class? Good. I can't bring myself to admit that it all went in one ear and out the other. Oops. Oh, I can go back. But, and out the other. I already said it, but. Alright. Sure. After a short while, we reached the meadows just outside the neighborhood where we both live. It's a scenic view I've grown used to. Autumn is especially beautiful here. When we were children, we played in these meadows a lot, so they're full of memories. Me, hey, She turns to me and smiles. She looks so welcoming that I feel my nervousness will melt away. I'll ask her, will you be my artist for a visual novel?
Yes.
Silence. She looks so shocked that I begin to fear the worst. But then, sure, but what's a visual novel? Actually, I did not know what visual novels were before I took the class 2 years ago. I'll admit to it. So it's a video game, it's an interactive book. Which one do we want to do?
Book.
The book? Okay. It's like an interactive book that you can read on a computer or a console. Interactive? You can make choices that lead to different events and endings in the story. So where does the visual part come in? Visual novels have pictures and even music, sound effects, and sometimes voice acting to go along with the text. I see. That certainly sounds like fun. I used to make webcomics way back when, so I've got lots of story ideas. That's great. So would you be interested in working with me as an artist? I'd love to. And so we become a visual novel creating duo. Over the years, we make lots of games and have a lot of fun making them. Our first game is based on one of Sylvie's ideas, but afterwards, I get to come up with stories of my own too. We take turns coming up with stories and characters and support each other to make some great games. And one day, hey, yes? Will you marry me? What? Where did this come from? Come on, how long have we been dating? A while. These last few years, we've been making visual novels together, spending time together, helping each other. I've gotten to know you and care about you better than anyone else. And I think the same goes for you, right? It goes for you, right? Sylvie. I'm not a voice actress. But I know you're not the I know you're the indecisive type. If I held back, who knows when you'd propose? So will you marry me? Of course I will. I've actually been meaning to propose, honest. I know. I guess I was too worried about timing. I wanted to ask the right question at the right time. You worry too much. If only this were a visual novel and I could pick an option to give you more courage. All right, we got married shortly after that. Our visual novel duo lives on even after we're married, and I try my best to be more decisive. Together, we live happily ever after, even now. Good ending. All right, so that's the basics of what a visual novel looks like. You kind of break it down. A lot of people prefer to have smaller bits of text. This is feedback I've gotten when I've done visual novels. Some people get really tired of long blocks. So it does help break it up a little bit when you have it like in sentences, in smaller sentences. But that's a stylistic choice. I'm just putting it out there. All right. So let's go back to our question. All right. So creating a visual novel, you display images and text, you create branching paths. A lot of this is very similar for kinetic novel. Track game state and player choices. Well, that's not going to be useful in a kinetic novel. Add sounds and music. Sounds and music, so the top and bottom one would be good for kinetic novels, since so getting started. So if you've got Ren'Py up, you can actually, I'm going to kind of walk through this first part. You don't have to, though, if you don't want to. All right, so down here, once you've got it all set up, some Some things you do want to have set up is the preferences. You tell where the projects are living. So in this case, we've got it in D, projects. Do you mind if I change this really quick, just for the purposes of this talk? Okay. I'm actually going to desktop, and I'm actually going to put it here because I have examples. Here we go. And oh, you've got Adam. Okay. The one that it comes with is Editra. I tend to use that one just because, but it's not required, of course. You can also select language and other stuff. Okay, return. I don't normally get involved with the stuff other than making sure that I've got my directory correct. So you can create a new project. You'll be creating an English language project. Change the launcher language in preferences to create a project in another language. So you can just go to preferences at that point if you want to, or just continue. And then, let's see, I'm going to put this down for now. So, maybe, all right, so this is the next part after you name it is what resolution should the project use? They used to be just one resolution. It was a single resolution. It wasn't any of these, actually. I'm not sure what changed or why this decision was made, but when I was first learning about it, there was this one resolution option. And this is essentially what your background images are going to be the size of. The size of the background images have to be at least this big. Otherwise, you're going to have, that checkerboard pattern you get with transparent images. That's basically what you'll get. That's just something to keep in mind. So if you have a lot of images in these formats that would work really well with these formats, then you pick that format, essentially. The middle one is the most popular.
So do you know if it's larger than 1280 by 720 if it resizes, or larger is okay, smaller is not okay? Is that
larger is okay. You can also resize it. I tend to use a program called GIMP, which is a free image editing software. And that's good for resizing.
Would the sizes here really determine the actual finished file size when you're done? You go over to the graphic image that has high resolution with larger file, right?
Yeah, if you have a lot of larger images, it's going to be larger because when you create a game, it's going to be a bunch of files, not just one. It pulls from folders. So it'll be stored in that sort of cluster. So it'll be larger if you use a larger files, larger image file. That's a good point. Any other questions? Okay. So continue. All right. Now there used to be so many options for picking like the accent and background colors, and like there used to be a whole like formatting thing, but I've not actually worked a lot with this, but you can actually control a lot of how the GUI looks and how that's very editable now, apparently, but at this point, but it's something you have to go into the file and actually edit rather than pick it from a default. So you can pick whatever colors you like. I'm gonna go with purple. I don't know, maybe red? No, purple. All right, so if you've gotten here, you can just continue. It's an example project. So what it's doing is actually generating projects. So now you might notice that if you click, it's not necessarily obvious because these all have pretty much the same files listed, but these are the files you can edit. So if you want to open the project, I'm going to open the project. so you can kind of see the background. And this is where the programming and creation happens. Okay, game. Here we go. All right. Okay, I use Editor. It usually just opens the files up for you, so you don't have to actually click on them too. And it has nice little tabs. But anyway, but here is, if you're not doing a lot of programming and like editing of like the GUI, and you're not creating a lot of screens, if you're just doing a straight up, very simple visual novel, you're primarily, I mean, even if you start getting involved in the more, much more complicated programming, you're still mostly going to be using the script.rpy file. So this, so here you have, so you have a character. Now this isn't going to make a lot of sense, so I'm going to actually launch the project, Lesson 9 project, and you can kind of see where we are with this project that's sort of a template. So if I click start on this, so you can see this is where we'd have the image with the from the game for the question with the little title card. Now what we have here is actually, it's sort of blanks. So if you misname, you get this where it says there's text up here, and you're expecting a background. It's somehow your background is not set up correctly. So you have background images and you have foreground images, like character images. Eileen is a character, so this would be like Sylvie or yourself in the question. And Eileen's telling you, you've created a new Ren'Py game. Once you add a story, pictures, and music, you can release it to the world. All right, so if we go and take a look at Adam, you'll see here's our character Eileen. There's the name, and then the coloring of the text is basically defaulted, and scene BG room. So you see, we haven't actually defined the room. And then show Eileen happy, which isn't defined either. We haven't defined that image. You have to define images and set up. I'll show you that too. All right, okay. So this is where the game starts. You define your characters and any Python or variables before you get to the start. So label start, and then the return is the end of the game. If you want to, you can have multiple returns. It's just once it hits return, it goes back to the main menu. And so if you're just doing a kinetic novel, essentially you'd probably just have lines like this where it's your character, and that's what this is basically a stand-in. Your E. So it stands for Eileen, and anything you define for Eileen. And this is very simple, but it can get much more complicated depending on what you want to do. You can add color, fonts, font sizing. It's all up to you how you want to structure it. This is like the bare bones. If you wanted to, you could create another character. So I'm gonna create another character here. Just to show you what I mean. And so I just wanted to make that instead of yes, it's all as a character. And then I'm gonna, And Python is really picky about spacing because I've tabbed in Editra, And it gets all upset because it's a tab, it's not 4 spaces. Every indent has to be 4 spaces. So everything inside, so anywhere you have a colon, this has to have 4 spaces. That's kind of, I guess that's a trade-off with Python. It's more human readable, but it's pickier about spacing.
I'll be happy to go into more detail about that. While
I work on this.
Yeah, while Frederika is working on that. So tabbing and spacing. In short, Frederika is talking about what's called scope in the programming world. Scope is such that when you create a new variable, when you create a new function or whatever, the scope indicates how long that variable will exist before basically the program says, okay, it no longer exists. I'm going to throw it in the garbage and throw it out of the memory. So the whole spacing mechanism, then, the tabs, that margin that you see under label, obviously, if you're looking at it casually, then you can tell that every sort of line that is tabbed right below the label is supposed to be part of that label start section. According to the Python documentation, any lines below it that has a consistent set of spacing numbers or tabs numbers is considered part of that scope, with the sole exception of a single space. So if there are at least 2 spaces immediately after the line lab start, then all preceding lines that are supposed to be under that lab start must have at least 2 spaces following through. You can also do 4 spaces, which is usually what's standard. You can also do tabs, which is also somewhat standard depending on what company you're working for, and so forth. Normally, 4 spaces tends to be preferred due to the fact that some companies still print code, and it just looks nice if it's printed in 4 spaces. But tabs works just fine. I personally prefer tabs because almost every editor allows you to customize how many spaces are supposed to be within that tab. Obviously, if you have other lines that has a colon at the very end, like label start right there, that will create a new scope, and you should take into consideration what next set of spaces or tabs you need to add in. You will have to follow the same standard that you have created prior to it. So if it was 2 spaces prior to it, then the new set of spaces that you need to add in has to be 4 spaces, because you're having scope nested inside another. And that's really the full of it. Fairly simple stuff. In case for whatever reason you're creating a scope where absolutely nothing happens within it, there's always a keyword called pass. That is PASS, and that is useful as a placeholder to let your programmer know that you're supposed to be adding some sort of code within the scope. Pass, as the name implies, does absolutely nothing. It's literally a placeholder line.
Okay, let me try it. So I've been messing with the colors. I've done this in a while, so all right. And then, okay, somehow I did not make a, is it what color or who color? That doesn't seem to. Let me just. Okay.
6 Fs, so it should work.
Yeah. All right. Save. Let me try this again. So this, I'm trying to actually give my character a different color. So, and I'm not actually sure how to do control. Is it Control R on? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a Shift R? Reloading script. There we go. There we go. So that changed the color of my name. So it was not what color, it was who color. Okay. So a good way of showing a different character is having color. You know, that's a good visual indicator that you have a character. you know, a new character showing up. Sometimes if you want to like introduce someone, but you're not ready to introduce the person, you can have question marks and their color in that color, and then have them introduce themselves and then add the name. So you could have, copy. So what if we wanted to just, wanted to be like, who is this mysterious stranger? We could have you know, F1 or something like that. It doesn't have to be a single character. A single character just makes it easier, but, and then I can have 1, F2, this might require an escape character. That's me. Anyway. So sometimes you do have to do escape characters, but this doesn't seem to be an issue right here. We'll see if it actually has a problem with it or not. All right, you've created a new Ren'Py game. Once you had a story, blah, blah, blah. And then, uh-oh, hi, it's me, Frederika. So you can do that kind of thing. That's a good way to kind of have continuity and kind of indicate, yes, you've got the same person talking without like revealing the identity of the person. You can also just have, if you just so if you just do, well, keep it consistent. Single quotes and double quotes work the same, but it might run into some issues. So, and then I might need to refresh, I suppose. Well, let's see. Shift R, or was it Control R? Oh, nope, it was. That seemed to have. You can add narration. So there you go. So if you just want plain text, you might have noticed that there were some of the text was sort of internal dialogue or monologue and narration, and that would be a good. This is a good way of doing that. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. This is kind of the very basics, how you put a story and have characters. So, not too complicated. All right, any questions about that though? I mean, you can also add formatting within the lines here. I'm trying to remember the specifics, but you can add things, tags that tell it, oh, make this bold, change the font size. You can also tell it, hey, wait a bit here. Let me see. Oh yeah, let's just break up someone's, be like, P. All right, save. Okay, and then we click through. No, it reloaded that time. Hi, it's me, Frederika. And then and then you can do like, let's see, there's W equals 1, I believe. I'm kind of doing this from memory. I usually, what I do is look it up, and then I have it in my one of my games. This is going to make it like last forever. Also, most of these, if you do have something like pause, it can be kind of bypassed by someone clicking. So there is that. Maybe it doesn't like the spacing. Sure. All right, let me try saving. Save. Launch project. So you can add like emphasis and force the player or your reader to wait. Well, you can't force them too much. You can actually just click. So if I go back, so you can just click. You can just click right through. So there is that aspect to it, you know, just because you set something up for the user to experience it a certain way, they won't necessarily want to. So you gotta kind of consider that when you're doing that kind of thing. Okay. So any questions about that? There's a lot of stuff you can do. Background images, other images. I don't have an example of another image. We can look at the question to do that, and music as well. So adding an image, you have to tell Ren'Py what's going on with images. You have to define it. Otherwise, it's like, it's a computer. It does not know anything. Like I tell my beginner game design students, computers are dumb. They don't know if you've made a mistake. They don't know that what you're talking about. So, you know, if you don't explicitly define it. So I'm just going to make sure I do this correctly because I don't want to waste everyone's time. But this is the format. So usually, BG usually refers to background. So, and you've got your images here. Now, going on to a little sleep. Okay, so BG, I got a picture of a beach. Equals. So we're going to go. And I have that in my lesson night. Here we go. So probably should have just, yeah, let's do this. I just grabbed some images that I liked from my role here. Nothing particularly special other than I was like, oh, hey, I remember that. That was fun. All right, control, save, and then you can have, instead of scene BG beach. Now these have to match. If for some reason they didn't, it would just say I can show you. What if I made a typo? And launch project. Very simple example, but you can see that it's very hard to see actually, but it says instead of BG room, it says, okay, yes, I want to quit. So I add the E back in, tell the computer exactly what it needs to know to actually display the image. All right, start. Okay, and naturally it freaks out. Why? Why did you freak out? I'm rushing through this. All right, so I actually want, okay, let's see, also, which image did I decide to use? Also velocity, okay. So I'm going to drop it into the, oh, no, not that one. Whoops. So, lesson night. Don't move on me, okay. All right, kind of juggling here with the, so inside game, there's images. That's right. Yep. That's where I went wrong. Okay, launch project. I was looking for it in the images. Sounds you can have in here, but images they have to be in the image. Here we go. Now I have a beach. Nice to see. In the middle of winter here. So nice warm beach, and yeah. So this is an image I cropped it down to the size, well, resized it so that it would fit the background, the resolution, the 1280 by 720. And then...
I'm sorry, did you do that or it did that? I didn't see.
The image or...
Yeah, the image resizing.
I did that in GIMP. So that's, this was a picture I took. It was not in the right format, but I mean, I probably could have just thrown it in there and it would have been kind of off-center, but to control where it looked, how it looked ahead of time, I mean, you probably could move it around, but that's a headache, you know, to do. And then, you know, it cuts off where it wants to cut off. And so that's, so I did this in GIMP. Like, I'm not much of I'm not an artist. Usually I just use photographs in my work and throw things into filters and just make it look like it's a picture, you know, it's been illustrated. But there's some good tools to do that with out there. All right, so that would be how you add an image, and then you can basically have with dissolve if you want to like have another. Let's see, let's have another. Let's just throw. I'm gonna throw my images in. Okay. And then I'm like, where okay. Right in the middle here. Scene. BG Beach. 2. With dissolve, just so it looks a little nicer. You can do a lot of different, there are a lot of different effects if you want to. I usually just go with dissolve, it's very simple. Oh. And then, okay, hopefully that, and then we have change of setting, and we have narration, and so, or slight change of setting. Same place, different time of day. So
I'm guessing every time you change the scene, you need to show a character if you want them on the next scene.
Yeah, if you want them in the next scene, yeah, you'll want to have it sort of rewrites everything, overlay, you know, everything's redone, and though if you have music started in this one, it'll continue playing.
Okay. That's
separate. So if you have a character, you'll want to have them reappear. One thing I've heard is you generally want to like, you wouldn't want your character to be static when the background's changing too much, I guess, much. So.
Can you put characters on different sides of the screen, or they always stay centered?
You can position them. That's I didn't. Not an artist, so I don't usually have character images for my own stuff. But yeah, if you say I want it, the positions, if you kind of, so we'll start here. For games, the coordinates generally are, and you can, with Ren'Py, you can either do pixels or by like, it's like 1 percentage. It would be like 1, this would be 1 over here. And so this is X increases down this way, Y increases this way, right? Or it's the other way, it's the reverse, yeah. Y, X, sorry. Sleep deprivation. Fun stuff. But this also, and if you don't remember this stuff, the tutorial also goes over positioning as well. They have a really great section just going over it in very, very good detail.
Okay.
So, and we might take a look at the tutorial as well briefly. If you like, you can kind of get an idea of what's there. So any questions about this part? Yeah, the default is smack dab in the middle, which, yeah, that's kind of boring. But if you want to have a character move, that's an animation, you can do that as well. It's kind of treated like an image with different steps. We have an example project on there as well, which is actually on the website right now, on our website right now, from the last lesson. All right. Any other questions? Okay, cool. All right, anything else that I wanted to cover? Sound effects. Okay, I didn't actually add music. It's a little hard to demonstrate that because we don't have very good speakers. But this is a game that I created that has music in it. So let's see where does the music start. Start here.
I would be interested just in checking out this code, like scrolling down through this code if you wanted to take a minute. Do that.
Oh, sure, we can go over this.
See what's there, the
Yeah.
that you put in. Just to see the options that you've already put in.
Oh yeah. This is a very complicated project that I created. It's the wolf one, right? You can go to my website. You can't. I don't have the code posted, but I do have. So this is a story where it was based on public domain assets or characters. I decided to go with the wolf. It's like half of the fairy tales out there, and you're actually a normal wolf, just a regular wolf minding your own business, and you get sucked into fairy tales, like a narration. Has anyone read the book Red Shirts? Or okay, no one. All right, it was kind of inspired by that. So
what are you defining in it?
Okay, this is a good question. This is where you define Python. So you kind of have to. This is sort of putting the Python in a separate location. This also requires dollar signs.
And that's saying it's Python exclusive or something?
Yeah, lines of Python code, essentially. So when you want to get a little more complicated. So I don't know if, looking at some of this, I'm not sure. This was actually the second project I had created in Ren'Py, and this was like the first time I tried doing more complex characters. So I had a background that was like a book, a fairy tale kind of book, a book that kind of appears to replace the regular default text box. So yeah, we got color. I could pick what font I wanted, what size I wanted, the sizing of the window, how much padding. So the text was very nicely organized on the on there. We can take a look and so. Do you want to take a look at this much more, or do you give you a general idea?
It seems like this could be written outside of Python.
Yeah, this might not need to be quite as. This was, like I said, my second attempt, and my first attempt with, and it wasn't really working the way I wanted it to. So running it in the Python portion helped. But this part is definitely Python. So these are variables that I defined that influence the story. So with a lot of visual novels, it's a choose your own adventure. But if you remember the choose your own adventure books, it was you made a decision right there on one page, and then you turned to the next one, and you got the consequences immediately. With visual novels, you can have more of like a cumulative effect. So that's kind of what I have set up here. If you make certain choices or certain sequence of choices, you get a certain, you could get, like there's a good ending in this one, and then there's an overall better ending you can get. And you know, if you make it the right exact right sequence, you can get the best possible ending. So the fairy tales maybe aren't going to bother wolves anymore. Essentially, it's the point of that. But if you don't make, but you can still make choices and make a good outcome for yourself, essentially. So that's kind of how I was that was basically how I was approaching it. I could keep track of whether or not you were hungry. You know, you're a wolf and you're kind of stuck in these fairy tale worlds, and you know the fairy tales don't really like it when you actually act like a wolf and try to eat something. You know, so but that also being hungry kind of compels you to act in certain ways too. So you've got your own needs. You've got the story kind of judging you the whole way, and you kind of have to make a decision.
Yeah,
Super duper quick comment. So there's using this code uses the $sign to write up any sort of Python code. There's actually a secondary method where you type in Python : and that gives you a multi-line Python coding mechanism as well. It's similar to the label start : that you need to put in a bunch of spaces or tabs immediately after that. So consider using that option if like you clearly need conditionals or some sort of multi-line process. But $sign works just fine. It just only operates on one line.
Okay. Yeah. The thing is, this was actually with the previous version of Ren'Py too, so this might also might be a factor that it might be that it works now, but it might for the current version of Ren'Py, but it did not work when I was first working on it. So anyway, so here we have a choice. So that I'm finished defining all these variables here. I have my scene. I start off with a just scene black is really good if you just want a black screen. You don't have to have a black image to have a blank black screen. It doesn't seem to have a blank white screen or any other blank white color, but oh whoops. But here, as you can see, I'm playing music. This is actually not, this is more like an ambient sound. And I'm using an OGG format. That one just tended to work better. I'm not really an audio person or an artist, so a lot of that stuff is kind of, well, it worked. At the time, so. All right, and then, so now this is where you get into choices. The menu basically is the keyword that says, okay, this is where we're going to have your choice between ask her now, ask her right away. Ask her now, ask her later. Sorry, that was literally the same option. All right, it's, so I had three options when you come across Little Red Riding Hood. Oh, it's it's like a human kid, a cub, like one of the cubs. Humans are scary, this is more what I would consider a more normal reaction from wolves. Wolves don't generally bother people. And I'm hungry, can I eat it? So
if I understand this right, you're the same scene regardless of the choice.
Yes.
Setting it right.
Yeah, so that's one way of handling it. Yes, it does go to the exact same scene. So this jump is basically goes to jump story one. So you go to label story. It goes to wherever it says label story one. So if you might notice also, if you wanted to, you could just have it go label start. If you really wanted to just start right over again, that's another possibility. But alternatively, if I wanted to, I could have had, something else happen. So what happens probably, I can pull up the question since we have two options there, open project, and then you can see that, how that one worked out. Game, script, and so, all right, ask her right away, jump right away, ask her later, jump later. So this is what happens when it says label right away. So and it goes into that sequence with those images. And then if you go, if you find it, let's see, probably at the bottom, later. And then jump to jump here, and then it's the bad ending. So yeah, in my case, I decided that you're going to still be caught up in this story regardless, but what choice you made as a character was going to affect what you how your mindset was going to affect how the story played out. So.
And all the scenes or all the labels are going to be at the top level and not nested, regardless of how.
Yeah, basically everything. Now, if this could be nested. I don't know. Actually, that might not be a good idea to try nesting it. But yeah, this basically everything within one of these sections has to be nested, like indented with 4 spaces. I say that often because it has been the source of much upset and frustration when I'm coding one of these. So don't do what I did many times. Make sure you've got 4 spaces, or you've got it set so tab is recognized as 4 spaces. So yeah, that's, and then it doesn't really matter spacing, but yeah, when you're doing the label. But I tend to start right at the edge. So yeah, basically this tells the Ren'Py, okay, this is all happening inside this section. I think it will jump between sections if you don't have anything. So if I didn't have anything saying jump to, it might just jump to the next label anyway and just ignore the fact that there's a label. But I haven't tried to do that in a while, and it's not a very good practice. You want to make sure you're telling it exactly what you want it to do at each step, rather than letting it just go to the next thing. I find you're less likely to run into trouble. Sorry, I'm jumping around a lot when I'm looking at this. Okay. So any other questions about this? And then I have, when you jump to it, you stop the music, and then you play other music. So I've got this sort of change in tone that happens, and I can actually let's pull this up, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. I'm going to launch my project. So, and this is the old style. So you might notice that the newer version has the menu over here. This is how it used to display. So. All right, now it's very subtle, but there are like woodland ambient sounds for this portion. You are a wolf that lives in the forest. It's rumored that every once in a while, strange things happen in this forest. Otherwise, perfectly normal animals suddenly do bizarre things like wear clothes and speak to humans. It does not always end well for the animals. One day, you are out hunting with your pack, looking for food for the young cubs. And you get separated from your pack. You have the unsettling feeling that you are being watched. And then, that's strange, where are they? Why can't I hear or smell them? So you're basically getting caught up in the magic of the fairy tale. It's a human, a small one. And then you decide, so any thoughts how we're going to react to the little girl in the red cape?
Well, now that I know how you set it up, it's not the last one.
Well, you can. I try not to be too brutal. You get a chance to
redemption.
You get to decide not to necessarily go through with actually eating Little Red Riding Hood. You always have the option to save yourself until you actually get sucked into the story too far. So I try to be gentle about it, especially in the first part. If you're doing like a game, it really doesn't help to just murder your player right off the bat. It just leads to frustration. So with that in mind, any thoughts? I will tell you, it's probably better to go with It's a Human Cub.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, and here we have the change. Yep, complete change and art shift, and I don't hear the music, unfortunately. Oh, I can hear the music very faintly. Oh, so you can kind of hear it. It's, so you've got this music going, and you're talking to a human for some reason. And I pulled this text directly from like a public domain version so that I wouldn't end up violating any copyright from any more recent versions of Little Red Riding Hood. So that's copyright. I'm kind of a copyright nerd a little bit. Just about a little bit. But you know how it goes. The wolf's trying to get Little Red Riding Hood to, go pick flowers and instead of go to her grandmother's so the wolf can go ahead. And the wolf is like, what? Okay, and so you're hungry and you get 2 options. So thoughts?
Let's go with number 2.
Number 2, okay. It's a very wolf response. Okay, so we have an option of trying to escape going straight or turn back.
Straight.
Okay, we'll go straight. Oh. This is the story once again, like luring you in. Hey, there's food. So which one do we want to do? I've pretty much given it away though, but go.
Sure, let's go far away.
Go far away, yep. Okay, keep going. Go far away. Run away. Okay, then you get away. Now, depending on your choices, sometimes the story tries to suck you in more. So that's kind of that first part. It's spoilers for my game here, but there's more to it than that. So it's and then so you find somewhere to rest or keep looking. So, but that's basically how that goes. So if you want to play the rest of the game, you can. It's on my web. It's on itch.io. So, but yes, I want to quit. So, you also have to tell the music to stop explicitly. So do you have any other questions about choices or how to set those up? So yeah, and then I have if statements. If story is winning, we kind of end up in a different scenario. So if you are being unusually benevolent for a wolf and I'm going to look out for the little cub and make sure she's okay, you actually get a little bit of a bonus. Not good. Yeah, anyway.
So you're changing the storyline based on the variables that you set instead of just the choices that people make. Because
basically it's from your previous choices. It's not an automatic. It doesn't automatically affect the story. It does open new options up for you, so you can do that. So you can have the same set of choices, or you can have a set of choices and then additional choices. So you don't have to just have 2. I just kept it very simple with two or 3. But if you get too many, it can be a little bit daunting for a player. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, any other questions? music and sound effects are separate from each other. You can have a sound effect. There's like, I don't know if I don't want to lead you wrong, but you might want to check how many channels. I think you have one music channel, and then you can do other audio channels for, and all that is just, play sound effect and don't loop it and stuff like that. But yeah. All right, so we have story and text. We've discussed creating a character. All right, and I'm going to make sure the volume is low on this, but so I just want to give you a little bit of an idea of what the tutorial's like, because it is very handy. Just so you know, if you're like, once you get the tutorial started, the music can be kind of jarringly loud. It's like almost like circus music or something. All right, so oh yeah, it's very, very calm here, and if you could actually hear it, it's pretty. So this is Eileen here talking. So from our beginning project. So you have like quick start, and it'll actually like walk you through. So it'll tell you another important part. Break sound up into channels. Channels of sound played determines if the channel of sound is played determines if the sound loops and if it is saved and restored with the game. When the sound is played in the music channel is looped. Alright, and it is saved when the game is saved. And then when the channel name sound is used, the sound is played once and then stopped. It isn't saved. So and it just goes into like which formats work. Sometimes it's, if you have a format that you can't get to work, like you can't, a good conversion tool for this is Audacity. It's free. You just open the file and save as or export as .orbis or .ogg, and then you're good. Usually. Okay. And then they'll have examples. So you can fade in, fade out. It's a little hard to, you can stop the music, so. And you can. So, multiple sounds on the sound channel, but the sounds will only play one at a time. So, and then it starts over. So you can kind of get an idea of how this all plays out. And so you get the quick start version, then you have more in-depth stuff. And then, so if you want to like screen displayables, that's like, if you wanted to do like kind of an RPG kind of game with like a screen where you click on the button and it opens up. You can do that kind of thing where there's like, or you have to display like an image or a set of stats for your character or something like that. Oh wait, oops. Why are you? And let's see. You can also kind of take a look at how they implemented the tutorial itself, but if you actually look in the comments in the text, and actually I didn't actually point out the comments, but comments, everyone's here is familiar with what a comment is in code, right? Okay, so it's just, a number symbol, hashtag, whatever. But yeah, if you wanted to look at positioning images, you had a question about that. So let's see, X align, Y align. So it'll show you where it is. You can go even further and like say from what point in the image you want the alignment to be measured from. Like in the corner, in the center, that kind of thing. So this is 0. So So yeah, if you really want to see it, the actual examples they display are pretty good. The examples within the tutorial itself, if you like look through the text files, might be a little bit odd, and they do a lot of strange things there that aren't necessarily best practices. So, and they say that right in the comments. This is not really the right way to do it most of the time. So if you really want to just make it work during a game jam, then you're pressed for time. Sometimes that can work, though it can cause more trouble down the line, especially if you try to personalize it too much. All right. Okay. And then let's see, we can also take a look at animations as well. Transforms and animations. So you can say, oh, at right. And then gratuitous rock concert. And it's okay, there's a lot of work, but it's built. Yeah. So this is showing you a much simpler version image. So it's going and it's repeating. That's the part that you can't really see. It should be a little wider, I think, to see image. So she's just happy, very happy, and going back and forth between them and repeating. You can actually have it do it like a set number of times and stop. You can also have it do it for a set period of time and then stop. And here we have a little Ren'Py logo dancing around, offset. Yeah. So this gives you an idea. Yeah, diving into the tutorial, there's a lot here. There's a lot of ground to cover, so it doesn't make sense to necessarily, unless you know what you're looking for. It doesn't necessarily make sense to go through this in depth, but I just wanted to show you that this is a resource that's really handy if you want to do something specific. And yeah, you can use this stuff. I mean, for a kinetic novel, if you wanted to do like a character walking across the screen or something, or getting into position, or turning around, or something, Oh, yeah, okay. All right, so you get the idea. Any questions about this? Okay.
And you can go in there and also see the code, right, for some of the stuff that we're seeing on the screen.
Yeah, but like I said, it's not necessarily the most. It's not best practice, not necessarily best practices. So you might be dealing with something that they've kind of hacked together to make exactly what they wanted to. I do have a list of resources that I can point you to if there's something else you want to try. If you want to try. At the end of this, so there's the Lemmasoft forums, which is the forums for Ren'Py. It's a very popular game engine. So there are a lot of people who know who've worked with it, who are very familiar with working with it. People make visual novels. Visual novels are kind of a game style that you can. A lot of games, it takes a few years, mostly, at least a few years to create a game. Visual novels are very unique in that you can make something that you can put into market like in months, depending on the size of it, how many words, how complex. So it does have a good turnaround time for that.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so I've gone through some of the examples from the tutorial. So I do have some examples. So these are kind of, we have the animation example you've kind of already seen. We do have, you can probably do like image button example, launch project. So this would be like a click. And these examples are already posted on the website as well from the previous one. This is the old version. So this is what Jamie posted. So you can have a button where you click on you can use image buttons. Image buttons are just basically images that are set up so you can click on it and interact with it. So if I click on the door, you clicked on the door. Oh, yeah. All right, and then image button example 2, launch project. Yeah, if you click on the key, it says you clicked on the key. Yes. Okay, so I click on this. The door is locked. Well, you got a key. Click on the key. You collected the key. So instead of just clicking on the key, and you can open the door. So it stores a variable and says, okay. And yeah, you can, and that the files for this are also posted online as well, so you can kind of take a look at that in a little more detail. But well, if you want to. All right. Alrighty. Yeah. All right. So
now, do you go into the options and the screens files at all, or?
You can. So if you want to edit like how it looks, screens. If you have like a screen with like stats, you go into screens, options. Let's see. I'm trying to remember which ones I've actually messed around with and tried playing with. But yeah, we can take a look. We can take a look at those files as well. Let's not. I didn't do too much with that one. Let's see. This is lesson. So options. You kind of. So this file contains options that can be changed to customize your game. So this is where it can get a little more complicated and it does explain some. All right, following line to set an audio file that will be played while the player is in the main menu. So if you wanted to have main menu music, this is where you put it, and that's kind of handy. I've not actually played too much with the options. But yeah, it helps to look around at the files and just see what's available. So you can configure a lot of things if you know what you're doing. Alternatively, you can end up breaking something and but it's always a good idea to kind of back something up before you start messing with it. GUI. All right, initialization. This would be like you pick which accent color, so the accent color you can change after the fact by altering this. Idle color, you can decide to make decisions about how things should look. Text button cannot be selected. You can change the font. There's probably other things that aren't necessarily explicitly stated here that you can also define.
But like for the font, you could also change that in the script. Is that right?
Within you can change it for a particular character, or you can change it. Changing it in here will change it for the whole project. So that's something to keep in mind. If you don't like something, you can always find a way to mess with it. And definitely the forums are a good place to look. The comments are pretty good here too. I think they're actually better than when I was getting started and trying to figure this stuff out. So okay, you can also mess with the speaking characters' names, the location. So, and this would be sort of the set of defaults. You can mess with a particular character and have things move around depending on how you like what you want. If you're having a character with a particular kind of text box, you might want you can customize it and then you can have them look very different if you want. Like I did with my characters with the book in the background. So. So yeah, so this is a lot of like formatting, UI elements, kind of if you really want to get into that kind of stuff. I'm not really I'm kind of I'm not a very UI kind of person. Color, it's not very specific.
But I think you're also saying most of it can be changed in the script anyway. But most of it can be customized in the script anyway, right?
Yeah, you can change a lot of it in the script. I don't know about for the choice buttons, so like the in-game menus and stuff, that might be a little harder to do in the script file. So if you really wanted a particular look for the choices, I would go with these. I would mess with these carefully. So yeah, I would recommend. Honestly, a lot of my work, when I learned about Ren'Py was just going in, messing with it, playing with it, trying it out. There's a lot here. There's a lot of options. If you want to do something, there's probably a way to do it. Might not be easy, but there's probably a way to do it. And so yeah, and the screens, so you can do bar, scroll bar, sliders. You can. So, any other questions about this part? Yeah, I haven't not played with this particular part in a while since I've started. It got kind of easy. It's very easy to just let Ren'Py take care of a lot of the UI elements, which is one of the reasons it's popular. It's very easy to. It takes care of a lot of that stuff. You can focus on writing, or if you want to do like functions or something and mess with like if you really want to create a story, it's very easy to make something very polished looking without having to be very good at polishing things. So, all right. Anything else you want to look at or here?
Yeah, this is a good start for me. This is a really good start for me with what I want to create with my house I ended about before.
Right.
So
yeah.
I definitely see a lot of possibilities of things I can work on with him.
Cool. Yeah, okay. All right, so, and here we go, further resources. And by all means, this isn't meant to I can answer more questions if you want after this, but, so this is the actual documentation. I'll just navigate there. As I said, the Lemmasoft forums, just look up Lemmasoft. It's not a very common word. And you can pretty much GUI customization guide. So if you really, really want to change all this stuff, intermediate, advanced, you can get pretty. One of the things I ran into a lot when they immediately after they changed from the classic version to the new GUI interface was a lot of the documentation was out of date, but they've really been good about updating it since then. So it's really, really good. I would look here. I tried going on Google and just, trying to find things that I was looking for, and I ended up with a lot of the outdated documentation, which was a bit frustrating. But, and then Ren'Py language. And yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot to cover here.
And getting this into like a browser, it's easy enough. Getting your visual story into a web format.
So this actually creates an executable in a cluster file. So when you build a Ren'Py game, it's actually, let me see. When you build it, it's something someone has to download and play locally. That's the one downside to Ren'Py, I think, is that you can't do a browser playable kind of. Okay. There are browser playable game engines, visual novel engines, and interactive fiction engines. Like Twine is definitely browser playable. I think there's one called Cloud Novel out there. I'm trying to remember if there are any others. Unity had an add-on kind of that was free that you could And Unity you can build games that are browser playable. So, okay, so here's an example. So this is the executable, and you kind of need it to be in this hierarchy of files. So this is a game Taro made for The Last Minute Dare. So somebody basically zipped the file and, okay, why am I not? Oh, right, enter. Oh, goodness. All right, I am female. You know, maybe we should just have one that's like random for that. Like, you don't care. You're You're open for anything. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, I can do. You can do an epic narration, or I can do one. Sure. Oh, egads! I'm late for my date. I was getting excited by the date I hooked up online today that I couldn't sleep last night. Now I only have enough time to pack 3 things. This is already starting to become a nightmare. Quick, what should I bring? Band-Aid. I've played this game before. And what else? Bandage. And finally, well, yeah, I'm gonna go handkerchief. Smartphone. What? All right. Right. I hope I make it to the cafe soon. Can't leave the date hanging. Yeah, it does look exactly. Yeah, it does look exactly the same as when you're launching the project from Ren'Py when you're testing it. It just acts the same way, or should act the same way. I've had some cases where it doesn't always, for whatever reason, but that's a fun bug to troubleshoot. Okay, so that's one drawback, but other than that, it's a pretty cool game engine that you can do a lot with, and has a really good very strong community. Okay, should I continue with the story, or do you want to direct people?
So one brief comment here, Ren'Py does export to Windows, Mac, and Linux.
Yes.
Mac is a little strange, but nonetheless it's able to do that. For this one that I just unzipped here is for Windows and Linux. Windows being the exe file and Linux being the .sh file. So the .sh I think stands for bash. But anyways, so basically you just for Linux people you just need to mark that script as runnable and it will run just fine. That's assuming you have Python installed, of course. And then Mac, I believe it just makes an app file, so you can just run that as normal. Options in regards to putting it up on the web, I've been looking it up. There is no stable option that is really easy without need of conversion for some of the scripts. So as of right now, there isn't an immediate method of doing so, but I do know that there was at least one open source project currently in alpha form that was attempting to be able to port your project almost directly onto the webs. There's another one where you have to copy and paste all the files and the scripts over. And you do have to make some minor changes to the scripts, but otherwise, generally speaking, you can kind of port your project. There's just not like a simple import method to do so.
Yeah, another thing, you can actually, and I've not done this, but I know that people have, you can make apps for phones, devices. So you can actually build an app for. So that's a cool thing that you can do. Mobile app, great. Mobile app for your phone or tablet. So you can be on, you too can be on the Google Play Store. I don't think the Apple, I get the impression Apple Store is much harder to get onto. Very, very hard, so. I don't know. This is from professional work. Like they seem really picky about what goes on their store. Android's less picky, so. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my exam, my further resources. Sorry. No. Okay. Also, this Saturday, visual conference. This is an online conference on visual novels. I will caution anyone who. Now we have like a certain. We tend to try to be suitable for all ages. The visual conference, unfortunately, visual novels do have a broader audience. Very frequently, they're like dating sims, which can get into territory we don't normally have in this space. So, if anyone's, I don't know how many people are watching right now on our stream, but just be aware that there might be stuff that pops up during the conference. It's happened before. That you're kind of unexpectedly. If you're concerned about that, or you don't have time to watch a conference or watch a stream all day Saturday, they will be posting the videos up on YouTube later. I can show you the channel. They also have 2 previous. So yeah, you can register now. I don't know what the price is. Registration. Oh, it's $15. So you just basically get a link. They have a Discord chat. It's cool. Go to past talks, and you can go to the playlist from 2017 and 2018. There's some good stuff there. There's good. There's overviews of different game engines other than Ren'Py. So if you're looking for something that's browser playable. That might be a good resource as well. Ways to they talk about voice acting, about writing. One of the ones they were discussing writing actually was not necessarily safe for work, but just as a heads up. There was also one that was discussing legal considerations in a very broad sense of like when you're hiring people and, make sure you do have a contract, My husband's a lawyer, so I'm like, yes, you probably should make sure things are up front, everyone agrees on everything, it's all in writing, so you don't end up. So if you do decide to do this, like, professionally, or try to make money this way, or, even on the side, you probably want to make sure you're protecting yourself. All right, and then, this one I did not know. Well, I knew of, but I didn't think of. So this is one I had not brought up on Saturday. So this is NaNoWriMo. So everyone here has heard of NaNoWriMo? Oh, National Novel Writing Month for November. Everybody not everybody, but people try to write an entire novel in the span of 1 month. This is trying to create this is essentially a month-long game jam in March, where everyone participating tries to make a Ren'Py game in a month. So, and that can be fun as well. And they've got the countdown to the next one in 2019. So coming in March. I don't think it's quite the same level of commitment in terms of word count. It's NaNoWriMo, it's like, 50,000 words in 1 month. I've tried it. It's hard. I've won 1 year where I didn't fail quite as hard as I did other years. That was a few years ago. But yeah, it's difficult. All right, and then special thanks to Jamie Stevenson and TVGS for being supportive and helping me learn how to make games that, in a style that worked for me. So, any questions though? We do have a digital storytelling first Saturday of the month from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. All right, so that's it. No other questions, and feel free, if you're on their Discord server, you can always ping me and ask me questions. Jamie Stevenson's also on there. He's also a good resource as well, and Taro's a good resource. I'm a QA, so I do some programming, some background in programming, but not a lot. But I do know how frustrating Ren'Py can be, and if you have an error message, I can figure out where it went wrong. Most of the time. Some of them are a little bit hard to parse. Okay, cool. All right, thanks for coming.